We are live, and we are not in Mount Shasta. Welcome to Monday's Toltec Discussions with Golden Eagle. And we are in week 2 of a series called In Quest of Self. Oh, the lower right. The, no. Lower right. Yeah, we don't have hard lines, so it's probably going to be a little glitchy, so we won't go real long, but there's a few key things I need to get out tonight. So we'll touch base with who's online here in a few minutes. Um, let's see, to recap last week in 45 seconds or less, we started the concept of the background energy field of the universe and the archetypal energies as recorded in the traditional teachings and writings of many cultures around the world, that while their overlay looks a little different, the maps they draw and the name they use are all pretty much the same, and it's called the Tree of Life. The three versions of that we will be looking at in depth over the next couple of months or more, however long it takes to get through, are the Hebrew version from the Kabbalah work, the Norse version, and the Celtic version. So we covered a lot of the basics last week and some of the basic principles underlying this work, and I'm adding one more tonight. We had gone through 5 basic principles, and if you want to know what those are, I'm going to make you go back and watch the tape. The tape version, for those of you who didn't take good enough notes. Tonight I'm adding basic principle number 6, and this one is most specifically about the Kabbalah work as opposed to the Norse or Celtic Tree of Life. And basic principle is number 6 is you need to be aware that there's a great deal of misinformation circulating in the literature about the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Some of that is because the authors of the books in question really just didn't know. They did the best they could, but they made mistakes. They didn't quite get it right. And because their work gets cited and copied, it's gotten propagated throughout time. There was a tendency back, especially in the 1800s, and earlier even, to deliberately reverse things, to deliberately put false information into your writings so that if somebody else found it, they wouldn't get the secret juice. They wouldn't have the full secret formula. And the truth then was always transmitted orally from teacher to student as part of the initiatory process. And without that oral initiation, anybody else who came along and heard these teachers, saw their writings, would go, oh, yeah, they're uninitiated. Interestingly, we will be touching on a number of points along here about the Tarot, which is another method of examining the same core fundamental information about the universe. I want to make it clear, though, that this class is not a Tarot class. It's a Tree of Life class. But the same misleading, deliberately misleading information was planted in a lot of the Tarot work, some of it deliberately to mislead the uninitiated, and there was a traditional oral initiation system as part of the Tarot, especially the older ones, the older knowledge, the older teachers. And the same thing has happened there. People copy someone else's work not knowing any better. It gets propagated through time. And people trying to use that, of course, are then left with, well, gee, I wonder why this isn't working, because they have the wrong information. So just be aware of that. And part of this process that we call in quest of self, the purpose is for you to have a better map of how to go direct and connect to your higher planes of consciousness and your own higher consciousness and the higher planes of consciousness, where you tap into the correct information yourself. You see it directly, and you don't have to believe anybody's writings. You don't have to believe my teachings. You don't have to believe my writings, or MacGregor Mathers, or Dion Fortune, or Rabbi Luria, or any of the other great writers of Kabbalistic studies. You go direct, and then you know. And then it's like that Emily Latella thing that I keep referencing from Saturday Night Live, for those of you old enough to remember that. Oh, well, that's different. Never mind. For those of you who don't get the joke, Emily was this cute little old lady. It was played by Gilda Radner, who was hard of hearing. And she would hear something on the TV news editorials and get really upset and come on TV to do a counter argument. And then her whole premise was based on having heard the information correct. So one of them, for example, was she was coming on to do a rebuttal to the editorial the week before about violins on television. What's all this I hear about violins on television? You said they're bad, but I just love that Leonard Bernstein, and he has lots of violin players on television, and it's just wonderful. And they finally shake her on the shoulder. Emily! It was violence on television, not violins, violence. Oh, well, that's different. Never mind. So, when you get the true information yourself, you can ignore all the writings, including mine, and you tap in and go, oh, well, that's different. Never mind. So, where I'm going to get to tonight is what is called in Kabbalistic literature the four worlds. But I realized about halfway through my planning stage of this that we can't jump into the four worlds because you're going to be very, very confused. So if I was mean and cruel and nasty, I would just jump into the four worlds and laugh as you kind of scratch your head, not knowing what to do or what I'm talking about. So we're going to start with the simplified short version of an overview of the Tree of Life from the Kabbalistic point of view. Then we're going to go into the four worlds, and then everything I'm going to briefly touch on regarding the overall structure of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life we'll come back to many, many times throughout this series as we go through looking at the background field of the universe. You can call it the quantum field, you can call it the Bardos, you can call it the macro dimensions. It goes by a lot of names. It's the chaos beyond the veil. It's a chaos behind the assemblage point if you want a more Toltec view of that. So let's get started. Can we go to this camera now? So, is that showing up?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we have here is a set of 10 circles or spheres interconnected by 22 pathways. So the black spheres are called Sephiroth, plural, or Sephirah, singular. And the pathways that interconnect to them are called pathways. So there's some background associated with this. First off, this is the core structure of the tree of life, and above it there is a 3-layered veil. And to make it easy to write, I'm going to the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof Hour, R, hour, A-U-R. So how this manifests in the universe is something we'll talk about gradually over time. So at the first, up here at the top, we have the sphere that goes by the name of Kether. And Kether, we'll go through the names of all of them, the other names. The next one is Hokmah. Also known as wisdom. This is crown. Wisdom. Binah. Sometimes referred to as understanding. There's a lot of terms around these. Down here we have I'm trying to remember how to spell it. Hesed. It's easier for me to write like this. Hesed, Geburah, Tifereth, and then Nitzak, Hod, Yesod, and Malkuth. Okay, so Kether, Hokmah, Binah. Come back to that one later, probably not tonight. Hesed, Geburah, Tifereth. Nitzak, Hod, Yesod, and Malkuth. So that's the basic structure. Oh, there's a path missing. See, nobody counted quickly and said, oh, you've only got 21 paths drawn on there. There's supposed to be 22. See, your first test, and you missed it. Okay, no ding, ding, dingies for anybody on that one. You'll notice that there's 3 that form a triangle here, 3 that form an inverted triangle here, and 3 that form an inverted triangle here. These are referred to as the triads. This is just the nomenclature. We'll come back to the meaning of the triads later. And then the other major division I'm going to mention tonight, just mention, are the columns. And the columns are extremely important. And we'll come back to those later as well. So the one thing I will mention about these columns is the literature is often incorrect about which is left, which is right, and which is male and which is female. So go back to the other camera if you could, please. The one on me. And I'm going to superimpose this on me. So this is like if you put the tree on you like this. This is my right hand column. This is my left hand column. It needs to go down.
That's about as good as it's going to get. You
Okay.
can lift it up a little bit.
As long as my eyes are still visible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what it looks like, okay, when you put it on yourself. Now, when you turn around and look at it, and go back to the other camera, from the outside looking in, then you'll think, oh, well, that's the right-hand column, and that's the left-hand column. You just have to have your polarities right. Which way are you talking? And this swap, the left-right, Male-female swap is the biggest, most common mistake you'll find in the literature. This column, the real right-hand column, you will often see with a picture of the sun over it. And the real left-hand column you will often see with a picture of the moon over it. Sun, moon. I only have 4 colors, that's as good as it gets. And if you ever see them swapped, you know they either did it deliberately to mislead the uninitiated, or they themselves are the uninitiated. So this is the basic terminology of the tree. Now then, I need, everybody got this? Who's online? Let's go down and see who's online.
We have got Maria.
Maria, hi Maria. Your power didn't go out yet. That's good.
Yeah, she said it might because the thunderstorm is going.
Yeah, she warned me.
We got Muad'Dib.
Muad'Dib.
We have Bonnie.
Aurea Luz. Hello, Aurea.
We have got Yvonne.
Little Eagle.
We have got Melody.
Melody.
Yeah, and that's it.
So no Patricia, no William, and nobody from EJ's group. I actually expected 1 or 2 from EJ's group. And Coyote said he would be on tonight, if he could. You know how that goes. He's one of those shaman dudes. I don't know how far you can trust any of. Okay. Any questions on the basic structure of the tree before I erase? Nope? Okay. Erasing. Just like in high school or college, they put all this stuff on the board and then it's like, okay, now I'm going to erase. Okay. In an awful lot, are you on me or that?
You.
Okay. In an awful lot of the symbolic literature, sacred geometry, many esoteric spiritual traditions, you're going to find a lot of similar symbolism. We're all tapping into the same source. So that shouldn't surprise any of us. So the question might become, why this structure that I just drew? Why does it look like that? And it has to do with a field we call sacred geometry, not just simple plane geometry like we all studied in high school, but the geometry of the structure of the universe. So you can come back over here now. I'm going to. One of the things that we talk about that is of where it all began is a point. And one of the things that comes next after a point is a line. And then around the point, we can draw a circle. That's almost a circle. We'll call it a circle, for lack of having a compass that I can use on a whiteboard. Okay, the point within a circle is one of the oldest and most common symbols you will find throughout the world. So what I want to do before I proceed with that is I want to back up and I want to talk about the core fundamental structure of the universe, and what by most accounts from spiritual sources as well as modern physics sources are that there are 19 dimensions in the universe. and that the core structure, this point within the circle I'm talking about, isn't really a point within the circle. It's actually a point within a sphere. You know what? Let me see if my drawing, I have a drawing in my notebook that I might be able to show, and we might be able to see. Can this be seen?
Kind of.
Kind of. Okay, let me do it on. So a point, so there's a sphere, and then think of a 3-axis coordinate system. And what happens when you project the sphere over onto each of the 3 planes? You get something that looks like a circle, right? So when we see the point within the circle, what we're really seeing is a projection onto a flat plane of something else. Keep that in the back of your mind as we proceed with this exercise. There was something that we found on the internet, and I think Aurea posted in the Golden Eagle Discourses Facebook group, of something that looked like kind of a globe with these things in it, and it was hollow, and it had a light bulb in it. And the light casting a shadow of all these solid parts of this hollow globe, actually the shadow was a square grid. And then the light, of course, was in here somewhere. So can you see that, or should I hold it up?
Yeah. Let me readjust.
Okay. So that was being cast from this. And so that I really like, because it's an exact analogy for what I'm talking about here. Okay, time to erase and go back to our point and a circle and a line. And what I want you to keep in mind is the point and the circle and the line I'm about to draw are really projections of something else from another dimension. Point, line, and circle. Okay, so then what happens if we take, I'm going to put another point there and draw another circle. Then we take another point there and draw another circle and another. Then what we have is, I'm going to make these different colors. You may or may not see that. These are becoming purple because I want them all the same. And then everywhere the circles intersect, we're going to put more dots. And where it intersects the line there. And so now I'm going to take and I'm going to draw a lot more lines interconnecting my dots. That should look familiar. This is how the representation of the Kabbalistic tree of life derives from the projection of the background field of the universe and the core geometric structures that hold it together. So, this circle, this circle, this circle, and this circle represent what I'm calling the four worlds. Absolute, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asaya. This is one of the 3 or 4 ways we have of representing the four worlds, which is derived from this projection onto this flat plane of this core structure of the universe. Okay, any questions on that so far from anybody? Give them a minute. So is everybody following this here in the studio audience? Okay, we have a small studio audience today, but everybody here is a Nakadua holder. So Nakadua is where it's at. All right, so what I'm going to do now is, before I talk about the details of the four worlds, there's another couple of pictures I want to show. Okay. So this next one is from the book, The Kabbalistic Tarot by Robert Wang, which is one of the 5 books I recommended that are good starting points and recommended reading, and none of the 5 are required. Okay, this picture is what I want to hold up. Can that be seen?
A little bit, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, down a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so what I want you to notice is 2 things. The divisions of the tree into 4 sections, and then the 4 mini trees sequentially touching each other. That's what I want you to get out of this little picture. So a lot of literature, let me go back to that. Now I'm going to just draw another one down here. This will just take a moment. Okay, there's a lot of literature will tell you emphatically that the upper triad corresponds to Atziluth, the middle triad corresponds to Bria, the lower triad corresponds to Yetzirah, and Malkuth corresponds to Asaya. And that's emphatically what they say, and that's all they say. Now, other literature will also go so far as to show that you can think of this as 4 sequential trees of life, where the Malkuth of Atziluth basically merges with the Kether of Bria, and so on down through the 4 trees, and that they will tell you, oh, this is the way it is. Now, what I like about this book is it doesn't limit us like that. It shows both of these. And what I'm also showing you is that in addition to those 2 ways of thinking about it, there's this geometric way of thinking about it with these intersecting and overlapping circles representing the sphere of influence of each of the 4 worlds. And then there's another way I want you to think about it. And I've drawn this picture here as best I could without having drafting materials, which I just uncovered yesterday. Can that be seen?
Yeah.
Okay. Where you have a complete overlay on top of each other. So this is like 4 cards of a card deck stacked up on top of each other, and one represents Atziluth, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asaya, but they're all 4 merged all at the same time, affecting all the spheres and the whole tree all at once. So there's this way, there's the circle intersection way, there's the triad way, and then there's the 4 sequential full tree ways of thinking about, come back to me for a while, of thinking about the 4 worlds and how they interact with the tree. What I would like you to grasp and start wrapping your mind around is the fact that all 4 are correct and all 4 are happening simultaneously. So who had the funny comment?
Just comments on my camera skills.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate you and your camera skills and computer operation skills and being the entire technology department tonight. So it's tough to take the show on the road. And I won't be winning any Tony Awards with this one for a road show. That's already been done by somebody else I know. So, the basic structure of the tree of life we just covered, the geometry of the universe and how it is created I've covered, and the 4 definitions of the way to think about the tree with respect to what are called the 4 worlds. And other than the name, I haven't given you any information about the 4 worlds. So if I were a true teacher in a real school, like a high school or a college or a graduate school, this would be the time to give you a test on the 4 worlds, because I haven't taught you anything on it. Oh, don't laugh. I can't tell you the number of instructors I had over the years that would pull that kind of garbage.
You're kidding.
No, I wish I weren't. Or I wish I was kidding, but no, I'm not. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the basics of these 4 worlds and how to start thinking about them. Let's start with Atziluth. Oh, it helps if I spell correctly and can read my own writing. Atziluth is often referred to, and none of these ways of describing this are completely correct in and of themselves. They are simply the best we can do to take a 19-dimensional concept and put it down into 3-dimensional concepts with the limits of our English language. To really understand this, it's something you have to read about, meditate on, ponder, contemplate, dream about, and then do that cycle continuously for a while. It's got to get in there and activate the Akadwa when you do that, because then it's going to help you resonate with that core source easier. So Atziluth is sometimes referred to as the spiritual world. I think the best term for it is it's the world of archetypes. This is the world or the level where the core patterns that create everything else reside. It is the world where God acts directly without going through intermediaries. It is sometimes called the world of emanations because that's where the archetypes, the patterns, broadcast their information down into the other planes to be implemented. So think of the archetypes as these core patterns. So everything that exists here in the physical world has an archetype in the world of archetypes. So a chair, there's a core archetype for a chair. Animals, so there's a core archetype for coyotes, for wolves, for bears, for eagles, and so on. For trees, even for humans, there is an archetype. The archetype, the prime model upon which all humanity is based, is called the Adam Kadmon. And we'll talk more about that in a week or two. Elephants, whatever, was one I had written down. These patterns are sent out through emanations or radiations or a broadcast or a live feed, if you want to call it that. And they carry the pattern and they carry the instructions for how to make the elephant and then how the elephant will behave. How to make a golden eagle and how the golden eagle will behave. How to make a human and how the human will behave. And as you see by looking around the world, that no two animals behave exactly the same. But you go, oh, well, that's the nature of a wolf. That's the nature of a scorpion. It's like that story I've told about the scorpion who wants to cross the river and cons the frog into carrying him, because surely the scorpion can't swim. If he stings the frog, then they both die. And so why would the scorpion do that? And he gets halfway across the river and he stings the frog, and they're both dying. The frog asks, why did you do that? And I can't help myself. It's my nature. It's in the archetype to be an untrustworthy SOB and sting anything I can. So within the archetypal world of Absoluth, there are 10 names, 10 forms, 10 patterns, if you will, for God. And these 10 names and 10 patterns correspond to each of the 10 spheres of the Sephiroth, which I don't have a good picture of right now because I erased. Well, I do have one, but you won't be able to see it. So each one of the Sephiroth and each one of the 3 spheres has a name of God associated with it. And so, for example, when you're reading any of the sacred scriptures and you see all these different names for the name of God, that's not just a literary mechanism to keep the reader from being bored. It's telling you exactly which aspect of God you're dealing with and exactly which one of these spheres you're in. And that aspect of God has different capabilities than the aspects beyond the veil, those veils at the top, the Ein, the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof Hour. One cautionary note, some sources will refer to the world of Absoluth as the intellectual world. And that's mostly incorrect. That's either a bad translation or a bad misunderstanding, and it runs the risk of misleading you or perhaps leading you down the wrong path. Now, these 4 worlds, you're going to see the number 4 come up many, many times through a lot of different literature and a lot of different systems. The 4 elements, the 4 directions, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and so on and so on. We have a question?
Yeah, Maria asks, do the spheres correlate with the planets?
There is an overlay of planets, and we will get to that. If you want to get all the correspondences we know of in a hurry, then one of the books I recommended last week was 777 by Aleister Crowley. Now, I didn't bring that one with me on my road trip, so I can't hold it up. And but that one is full of correspondence tables between not just the 10 spheres, but also the 22 paths. So they'll have 32 lines, and then a table is filled out. So 32 rows, and then all these columns for different systems, and it'll tell you what's the god name, what's the god form, what's the Egyptian god name, what's the Greek god name, what's the Norse god name, and all the way through. And there is an overlay to astrology. There is a correspondence between the planets. And that was one of the great additions to the world of astrology made by Crowley, was when he figured out where the planet Pluto went, because that shifted everything, because there was a lot of people were confused. They didn't understand what was right. Well, when this was developed, we didn't even have all the planets in the solar system that we knew about. And so once we added Pluto in, everything kind of fit nicely. And then, of course, a few years back, they decided Pluto didn't warrant being a planet, so they took it away. It's like, well, wait a minute. You know, there's a whole world of the dark side reasons for why they wanted to divert people's attention from Pluto. Ignore that man behind the curtain. Just use that analogy. So the world of Absoluth, in terms of, did I answer your question, Maria? Give me a ping and I'll try to add more if that helps. I wasn't prepared to go over every one of those correspondences tonight, but there is one in the book 777 is the best repository. The four elements are really crucial in relating to the four worlds. And the world of athletes corresponds to the element of fire. This is the source energy. Down here on the physical plane, the correspondent of fire is, of course, the sun. And so that energy is what gives life to everything in our solar system. So fire is the element, which means that in Tarot, the suit of wands or rods, which is wood and can burn, is the suit that corresponds to the world of Absoluth. So when you get down here, I'm going to draw another, I'm going to take away this and erase. If I can find my eraser. I'm going to draw another, go back to a tree that you can kind of see a little easier. There. I think I got them all. So when you get down into each one of these other spheres, there's 10 spheres, and the four suits of the Tarot, are you on here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are assigned to each of these. So in the Tarot deck, for the suit cards, the ones are here, the twos are here, the threes are here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the aces are all here. So that means the sphere of Kether has 4 aspects, one of which is the suit of wands, or the fire element. So as you're reading and studying everything about the universe, that's what you'll come to know, is here's the aces, here's the twos, and then there's 4 of those, right? There's 4 of those, and there's 4 of those, etc., down through the whole tree. The world of Absolute also corresponds to our God spark. We each have a little piece of God inside us. And that's the part of us that is from the world of Absolute. Any questions about this archetypal world of Absolute before I move on? Nothing. Okay, moving on. World number 2. World number 2 is called Bria. This is the world of knowledge. It's sometimes said that if Absolute is the spark of God, that Bria is the breath of God. The inspiration for the universe comes from Absolute, and the direction and the choreography comes from the world of Bria. It is the realm of thought, the realm of knowledge. This is where the raw ideas start to manifest. I would almost equate Absolute with the dreamer from the Toltec work, and Bria with the stalker. It's the world of pure intellect. This is where all the ideas and plans are formulated and mixed and detailed designs drawn, and then it comes down into the pre-formative stages on the factory floor in Yetzirah. We'll get to that in a minute. Some of the literature will describe Bria as the world of paradise, because that's where we eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, as described in not only Genesis, but in many other scriptures, that this is where the polarities form. This is where we become aware through intellect of all of that. And that permits the physical universe to happen. I think that's about what I'm going to say about Bria. Now, Yetzirah, we're going to come back, by the way, to these worlds. There'll be more to learn about all 4 of the worlds when we start talking about the triads, which I drew earlier.
Maria asks, what do you mean by polarities?
Okay, good question. I'm going to delve into the world of physics. We have opposite poles. We have positive electrical energy. We have negative electrical energy. The positive electrical energy is carried by protons, the negative by electrons. In the world of biology, we have 2 genders. We have male, we have female. And in order to do anything biologically, in order to breed and reproduce, both genders have to interact. Some species, the 2 genders are carried in 2 distinct individuals, and then they have to mate. Some species, both genders are carried in 1 individual, like many flowers and many trees have both male and female genitalia and sex organs, and the tree mates with itself, sometimes with the aid of another species like a bee, and sometimes on its own. The corn plant, the maize, one of the sacred foods of North America throughout all the Nahuatl people, all the Anahuac, who learned in the ancient times how to hybridize and raise corn. The corn plant, the maize plant, our sacred food, fertilizes itself. You have the tassels at the top of the tree, the pointy things sticking up, are where the male seed is carried. And then you have this receptacle that puts out tendrils, the silk on the proto ears of corn. And then through the action of simple wind and gravity and the ripening and the seed falling, that seed comes down and fertilizes the corn plant. So each stalk of corn, each corn plant contains male and female, and it fertilizes itself. But there's still, without the two polarities, the two genders, you can't reproduce. And you're going to see that. You see it in the yin-yang symbol, the ancient symbol from Asian philosophy. Switch over here if you're not there. That looks like this. It shows this swirling of the two black and white that combine a unified whole. So when I was talking earlier about the point within the circle, this is the circle, and within it are contained the two opposite polarities, and then each polarity contains within it the seed of the opposite polarity. And this should be thought of as being three-dimensional and swirling, not static and represented on a flat plane. That summarizes that. Come back to me. The Toltec version of the yin yang symbol is the one you've seen me use a number of times, which is that celestial butterfly. And its butterfly, of course, is the symbol of transformation, and it is drawn in a way so it has the two opposite polarities, but it shows butterflies, and it's clear to me that it's influenced by the ancient Chinese who had come to North America to study with the Toltecs. And the Toltecs used the butterfly, as do many cultures, as a symbol of transformation. Because the Toltecs weren't just trying to describe the universe, they were trying to use that knowledge to transform humanity. So they kind of merged the transformation concept with the yin-yang concept, and what emerged was the celestial butterfly as a symbol of these opposite polarities. So let's go over here. Let me just erase those fours. They're confusing at this point. So here at the state of Kether, and then above Kether, of course, are the veils. There's no polarity up here. But after the universe starts to form, energy flows first down to Hokmah and then over to Binah, and the creation of that, you have the opposite polarities. And then the creation of Binah instantly creates this other connection up here. So once you have this first triad, you have polarity, and without polarity, you do not have, come back over here, you do not have a stable universe. You don't have opposite polarity in subatomic particles. And without that, you don't have stable molecules. Without stable molecules, there's no universe. So that's what I mean by polarity. So now, Yetzirah. Any other questions before I go on to Yetzirah? A little bit of description there.
Ooh, I missed this a little bit ago. Bonnie asked, what are the suits correspondences from all four worlds?
Oh, did I not go through Bria? I gave you the suit of Atziluth, which was wands or rods, and the element of fire. Bria is mental. So I'm going to ask Bonnie if, knowing that that's the mental sphere, the intellectual world, what is the corresponding element and suit? That's one that you might be able to figure out just by knowing that its main sphere of action or mode of action is mental and intellectual. Let's see how many can earn a dingy, dingy, dingy.
We got Bonnie saying fire.
No, fire was absolute.
Maria says air.
Ding, ding, ding. Maria wins. It's air. Air is the element associated with the mind. And once you know that it's air, that instantly tells you it's the suit of swords. So that's the correspondence. Swords, mind, and air. So we've got 2 of the 4 out of the way. Moving on to Yetzirah. This is referred to sometimes as the psychological world. It's also the world of the astral world. This is where the astral world is most affected, is by the action of Yetzirah. So let's see who can figure out, knowing that it's astral, which element, you only got 2 left to pick from, and which suit. I'll give you guys a minute or so to think about that. Type quickly those answers. So who gets the next dingy, dingy, dingy?
Bonnie says water.
Bing, bing, bing. Bonnie gets a dingy, dingy, dingy. Water. The astral waters. And when you see the astral waters, then you kind of go, oh, yeah, duh. So once you know it's waters, then you know the suit is cups.
And yeah, she just put cups just before you said that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I knew she knew the association between cups and wine. So by default, if you've been keeping score at home, you should know the correspondence for a saya when we get there. And you should probably have been able to figure out when, go over here real quick. When I said, you know, one of the simpler explanations is Atziluth, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asaya. So Asaya is Malkuth in the simple version. And that should tell you right away that you're in earth and that the suit is coins or discs. So let's go back to talk a little bit about Yetzirah. The psychological world, the astral world, this is where ideas form, and it's the last stopping point before something manifests physically. So you've got a pattern. Creation gets completed in Yetzirah, and then you take this whole energetic creation and you bring it into the physical world, which is a Asaya, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I don't have a good picture of that in one of the books, what I want to do. So Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malkuth. Okay, so the world of Yetzirah is all 3 of these spheres, Yesod, Hod, and Nitzach. Yesod is the etheric plane and the lower astral. Hod is the upper astral and the lower mental plane. Okay. Nitzach is the causal plane. So those causal, mental, etheric, physical. So all of this is the world of Yetzirah. This is where we take what the dreamer came up with up here in Atziluth, what the stalker kind of planned, and then the plans are sent down to be created in Yetzirah, and then once the plans are created, then it can be manifested in the physical world, down in Asaya. So we're already talking about Asaya. And all the books about manifestation, asking. There's tons of those, right? There's the what are those famous ones? Some of the fluffy stuff movies. What was that one? The Secret, and what was the next one that came out? Some of those. Anyway, Bonnie will know. She'll know what I'm talking about. She'll ask.
Maria asks, casual?
Causal.
Causal. Oh, causal.
Caus, not
Yeah. No,
Casu.
I read it wrong.
Oh, okay. Um, Not casual. There's nothing casual about the causal. But you know what's really funny? Are you back on me now? What's really funny about that is I once found on the internet an image that showed the seven chakras, showed the outline of a human form and the seven chakras, and corresponding to each chakra, they had listed the plane that was most, so the physical, um, the etheric, the astral, the mental, the causal, the spiritual, and the divine. Only they spelled causal casual. And so for about a year, that was in my PowerPoint slides when we were teaching the Akadwa and things like that. And somebody said, "What's this casual plane?" And I looked at that and went, "Oh, I totally." And it was part of the original image that we had downloaded. So then we had to create our own. It didn't have any typos in it. So, okay, so back over here. This triad is the, if you think of this, which is legit to do, as this triad as the world of Yetzirah, and you're trying to manifest something down here, you need to have a plan, and you need to have the design done and completed here. So you need to have an idea, you need to have a plan, and you need to build it here, and then it can manifest. Most of the manifestation material out there, it's all about the law of attraction stuff, and I can't remember the name of that other book that became a movie, right? It was a movie and a book about that, and none of them go into the full story. And so people are running around trying to manifest, and it's not working because they missed one or more of these steps. They're trying to manifest something without an idea, without a plan, and without the design being implemented. And we don't have to do any of these steps alone. It's not all on us. Let's come back over here. It's not all on us to do it all. We have our higher self, we have our essential self, we have hosts of higher guidance, if you will, that are eager to work. And if you're trying to manifest something in harmony with your own true purpose, your own divine will, and the higher divine will, it happens quickly. And if it never happens, and roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, it might be a test, or you might need to go back up the ladder and say, is this idea I have in harmony with what I'm supposed to be doing? Are you like that client I had once that says, "Oh, I know what God told me to do, but I ain't going to do it." And then nothing works in their life. So I need to back up to Bria. I told you that Absolute was the sphere where God acted directly. In the other four worlds, God does not act directly. He has intermediaries. So the world of Bria, the mental world, the world of knowledge, the intellectual world, the air element, swords element, that is the world of action by the energetic beings that go most commonly by the name of archangels. Not angels, they're coming up. Archangels. And you will notice with great interest, if you pay attention to the literature and the artwork, that most of the archangels carry what? A sword. Not just Archangel Michael, who's most famous for it because of what his sword does that other people's don't. but most of the archangels have a sword or a similar weapon that is an emblem of this world, the world of Bria. Yetzirah, the psychological world, the world of the astral waters, that's the world that's ruled by angels, the choir of angels. So there's a host of angels begging, hoping, and praying that you will ask for help. You have to ask for help. If you don't ask, they can't act. They can't interfere without a request from you. So the most important thing you do is ask. So when you're trying to go through this idea and into the planning phase and into the design and implementation phase in Yetzirah and the manifesting in Malkuth, the physical world, ask for help. Hello? Anybody home? Ask. So let's talk about this physical world. Any more questions coming in yet? These are good questions, by the way. Be thinking out there, everybody. Yetzirah was the sphere of action for the choir of angels. The physical world is the sphere of action for the planets, the elementals, or the elements, and the zodiac. That's how all that happens. Their influences are in the world of Asaya. This is the world of experience. When we come down here into the physical world, we gain experience, we gain knowledge, we gain, what am I trying to think of? Experience and knowledge we can't get on the other worlds, on the other planes of existence. We do things here that can only be done here. And going back over to this other picture of the tree of life, which you can't really see. Let me see if I can modify this just a little bit. No, I'm not going to bother. The sphere of Malkuth is called the kingdom, and the divine will manifests. I'm going to talk about the path, one of the paths, just a little bit. The divine will manifests through what's called the lightning bolt path. I'm drawing in green. Starts here, here, and then down. Malkuth, the physical world, is the end point of creation. Think of it as this is the pinnacle of what the divine mind is attempting to create.
Bring it back a little bit.
Back here?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the goal. This is the target. So from the standpoint of the divine, this isn't at the bottom. This isn't down in the sewer the way a lot of feel-good New Age religions want you to think. This isn't something to be escaped from. Turn the tree of over and look at it as if God is climbing the tree of life, this is what God is trying to create, is right here. And guess what? That's where you are. If all you're trying to do is get back up, then you didn't need to come here. You're here on a mission. And it's a mission that's so important, come back over here, and so secret that not even you get to know what it is until the right time. And then only if you wake up enough to realize you need to look for and find your mission. Think of it as you're on stage in a big play. And as you walk around, as you're moving through the stage and the sets and interacting with all the other characters in costume in the play, you start to realize that you don't know your lines. You don't know what in theater terms is called blocking. You don't know where on stage you're supposed to be and when. And you're like, how does everybody know what to do? I remember this as a kid, watching people going, how do they know what they're, how, I was really confused back then, as opposed to last week when I was really confused. It was a different level of confusion.
Bonnie says she had that nightmare.
Yeah, yeah. You think that you're on stage, you're in a play, and everybody knows what to do except you, and they're all looking at you like, come on, what's the line? Come on, say your line. Come on, George. What? Oh, good, you got one right. Yeah, all right. Now the next one, right? And if and the next level of awareness, the first level of awareness is I have lines. I'm supposed to know what they are. I'm in a play. Oh, I need the script. I'm down here in Malkuth, in the world of Asaya, and everybody's got the script except me. So you start looking around the set. Where's the script? Where's the script? Oh, she's reading something. Let me go see if that's my script. No, that isn't it. No, well, okay. So you start looking around, and then you realize that there's all around the set, there's these little clues. Oh, I'll go over here. No, now that tells me go around here. And the clues are trying to walk you through the process of where to look and where to go to find the script. Not just anybody's script. It's got to be your script. But just like in a play, when you're in a play, you get your copy of the script and then instantly you go through and you highlight your character's name. So in this play right now, I've got several names. Well, let's say it's Golden Eagle, right? That's my shamanic name. I go through and I highlight all the lines for Golden Eagle. Where am I supposed to? Oh, and then there's blocking. Golden Eagle walks over here and smacks student number 4 upside the head because they're worried about things they don't need to be worried about. They max student number 2 upside the head because they're not paying attention. Smack student number 18 upside the head because they're looking in the wrong place. You know, so that's the kind of stuff I have in my blocking in my script. And then every once in a while, like on Monday nights, I have, oh, Golden Eagle teaches the basics of the Kabbalistic tree of life. Next week it says Golden Eagle teaches the basics of the Nordic tree of life, and so on, right? So it's that memory. And the key is, let's go over here, is some of the clues in this set that tell you how to find your script are here. They're in the tree of life. So if you need to advance yourself, you want to learn to make contact with and master the higher planes of your own consciousness and the higher planes of the universe, this is your roadmap. You need to learn this. So that's what I'm teaching, and that's why I'm teaching it. So come back on me. Anything else I need to say about this? I don't have red on there yet, do I? Okay. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to do that one later. That starts to blend into the tarot, and I don't want to go there tonight. I talked about that. I talked about that version of the 4 worlds. I talked about all these, and I introduced that. Um, okay, I think I'm going to stop the new information there and open it up to more questions. Where'd the book go? The book, the book. Let's go over here. The Practical Kabbalah Guidebook by C.J.M. Hopking is one of the recommended books. This has a very good, not a pretty good, a very good analysis of the four worlds and how it affects different aspects of the tree. And the flavor, you know, it's like there's at least 31 flavors of ice cream. There's different flavors for how this information can be presented. The flavor of this one is more of the traditional Hebrew Kabbalic mysticism. That's the overall flavor of this book. Dion Fortune's book, The Mystical Kabbalah, also has some good descriptions of the four worlds, and the flavor is more of the Western esoteric mystery traditions that became what we now call Western magic. So those are the two flavors. From me and how I use the world, you're going to get more of the Dion Fortune flavor, and that's more of the flavor of which I gravitate to because it is more practical on how to use it in a day-to-day world to accomplish your true purpose in life. This is more mystical and theoretical. This is more practical. So for me, come back over here. For me, it's always about what's practical. That's why I railed against math classes in college, because it was all theoretical. And you go to the physics department and we do math different. We do math practical. We can actually solve things. I was thinking just the other day, oh, I know what it is. It was this morning. Oh, wait, it was last year. It was probably both. We use, in this world, base 10 math in part because we have 10 fingers. If we wanted to use a base of mathematics higher than that, we have to take off shoes and count toes. A long time ago, and by a long time ago, I mean 10,000 years and more, the system in math in common use here on planet Earth was a base 60. Yeah, so computers do binary. That's base 2. It's got the 0 and a 1, and that's it. Everything is zeros and ones. Another computer form of math is octal, which is a base 8. So it uses digits 0 through 7. Then we think and work in the day-to-day world in base 10, digits 0 through 9. And another form of commonly used math with computers that has to get converted into binary in order to actually have something happen is what's called hexadecimal, or base 16. So 0 through 9, and we go A, B, C, D, E, F as additional symbols in hex math. So base 60 is way beyond that. Way over here, way over here. My hands are probably not even on the screen there. Base 60 we still have remnants of in our culture, mostly in time and angular measure. And the way we used to draw clocks, that was an angular measure. So we have 60 minutes in an hour. We have 60 seconds in a minute. We have 360, or 60 times 6, degrees in a full circle. That's the remnant of base 60. That's all we have left. If we had been trained in base 60 math as children, and maintain the neural connections it takes to think in base 60 rather than pruning them out through the development process. Because what happens when our minds, our central nervous system develops in these human bodies is any of those infinite connections or potential connections that are in there that don't get used and reinforced at an early age get pruned. We don't spend the energy on maintaining things we don't ever use. The other problem historically was that as humanity was being developed and enhanced for higher level work, a large percentage of the beings, the humans, who had developed that capability died. Continents blew up and people died, and not enough people were left to pass on those genes of the higher level math skills, among other things. And it wasn't just math. We're attempting to upgrade humanity, and all this energetic work we're using is to train our nervous systems and train our energy bodies to have those better links. So not only base 60 math becomes easier, but communication with the higher planes becomes easier. The ability to transform our world becomes easier. There's all these different things that become easier when we do that. And so that's why this work is so important to go forward. That's why we need to maintain a repository of this knowledge. And we need to use it practically to enhance humanity, enhance ourselves, enhance our small communities, all of the above. So this knowledge over here, the Kabbalistic tree of life, the Nordic tree of life, the Celtic tree of life, which are the three trees we're going to be studying, is all about that. It's teaching you the maps. It may be that the Kabbalistic tree of life isn't your thing. Maybe that the Nordic one is. We'll find out next week. And so on. Celtic, whatever. Maybe you need to read the literature that's out there about the different mythological archetypes from Egypt or Greece or the Native American worlds or the Australian Aboriginals or the Chinese mythology or the Japanese or the Russian or so on. It's just different language to describe the same things. Any other questions coming from our online audience? No? Okay. Thank you. You've been very kind, very polite, asked some good questions. So continue your work with this. Next week, we're going to be looking in a good deal more detail about the Nordic tree of life. So there you go. No more questions. We're going to sign off here. We can go ahead, finish your chat, whatever. Got it?
Yep.
All right, let's go offline.